How to have Kundalini Awakening. We're not talking about Kundalini activation and bodies moving. It's pranic healing. And in fact, there are so many people talking about what a Kundalini Awakening is and what it isn't. Unfortunately, in the West, when the West gets its hands on an idea, it then manipulates it and tries to simplify things, which simplification is good, but when information is lost along the way, information is lost along the way. A true Kundalini awakening is a spiritual awakening. The purest form of a spiritual awakening is a Kundalini awakening. So how does one have this? And how can one go about it? Kundalini awakening has two parts to it. It has Shakti, the connection to energy. It has Shiva, the connection to consciousness. We can see many people saying, I've had a Kundalini awakening, my experience. Now, these days, what most people are actually having in today's society, when they talk about this, isn't a Kundalini awakening at all. It's simply due to so much dopamine-seeking stimulation, their body reacts to it, and they have what we should really call a life crisis situation where their body is responding to them and saying, enough's enough, I need to do something. Now, this reaction can have several forms. This reaction can have a form of sort of going into depression, anxiety. It can go into shutting you down until you wake up, until you realize and de-armor and do the shadow work and release the ego. That isn't a Kundalini awakening. That is just your body saying, hey, you need to change something. So how do we have a Kundalini awakening? Well, first of all, we have to look at the connection to energy. The first part of having a connection to energy doesn't come in the form of Shakti. It comes in the form of prana or chi. This is the easiest way to connect to our energy. And as all the great texts say, first we must look inwards. And this is true because the energies are subtle. So we have to go inwards and start to feel the flow of chi, of prana, of our Jing, of our essence, an even more basic form, internal form of energy. Now, Jing can be connected to sacred sexual energy. It is not chi, it is not prana, it is not kundalini, it is Jing, it is our essence. It is the power of creation, it is the energy of creation. But it is a very simple, not looking inwards, not listening inwards. It is a question of turning the mind inwards and feeling. Just feeling. Feeling perhaps the physical body, and then going deeper, looking more subtle. Until we can find these flows in our body. We find these flows in our body you allow your body to start making its own corrections. And you can see, as I'm doing this, my body is having these little jerks, and it's just allowing my body. I'm not doing these. These are spontaneous movements. It's just correcting. It's just giving me little shifts. It's just allowing the chi, the prana, to flow smoothly. And here, the more I focus on those little things, the more they're going to happen, the more they're going to come out. And these can get bigger and bigger and bigger if you don't know how to control them. And then get to points of raising the emotions. This will release 2 emotional blocks we have. As our body moves and the chi moves, it will release blocks stored in our body. If we fight these things, if we do not submit to these things, it's just going to cause difficulties for us. And this is why devotion, if we talk about the 4 schools of yoga, the 4 ideologies, the karma, the raja, the jnana, and the bhakti. The mind, using the mind, the raja, to look inwards. Karma means action, nothing more. We release, we devote ourselves, we allow the energy to flow. These things come out, and we let them out, and we start energetically to de-armor the system. De-armoring the system, once we allow it to flow, can have this amazing release, and we can feel wonderful after it happens. If we fight it, it's not going to feel wonderful. And this is why you should always seek guidance when going through this. You should always be doing shadow work when going through this, to allow this process to be smooth. Once we can feel the pranic energy, the chi energy flowing, buzzing smoothly, everything is opened within our system. We've got to that state of feeling wonderful. This is not a Kundalini awakening. This is just a stage of de-armoring, of opening our system. So once all the tensions have been freed, once all the emotions have been released, this is a long process, especially if you wish to do it by yourself. This is why it's good to seek guidance, to seek a teacher, to seek an energy master to help you do these things. Once we've gone through this process and everything is flowing smoothly and flowing clearly, and we can start to not just have these triggers, these spontaneous movements, we can start to create responses to this energy. We can guide this energy. We can flow this energy. We can get to the point of, okay, my body's starting to move now just because of the tensions of the day or the week. They keep coming back. And then we can look further inwards, and the further inwards we go, we get to a point where we start going out again. And as we expand the energy, these things calm down again. And this is where we can start to create responses to the energy. And when we can create subtle responses to this pranic energy, to this chi, we can then, as I said, if you're doing this by yourself, this is not a 5-minute thing to do. This can take months, this can take years doing it by yourself. We can then start to channel the energy. And one of the safest ways to channel the energy is to activate our microcosmic orbit. So one by one, we activate the energy centers, the 3 energy centers, the dantians. And we can connect the microcosmic orbit and we can make it flow around the system. We are creating a conscious response with the energy. We can get it flowing. This is how we can start to build control for the next step. And the next step is starting to focus on the Shakti, that powerful energy that rises up the spine. So we have our life force energy, we have our prana, we have our chi flowing strongly and smoothly. We can then turn inwards to Shakti, to this cosmic energy, no longer life force. And we can focus our energy on the spine, the microcosmic orbit flowing. I go through all of this in my trainings if you wish to have a step-by-step guide to do this. But you can look these things up by yourself. You can read books, you can do lots of different trainings and study lots of different schools and go about this yourself. You're completely free to do this. I'm just giving you a guide of how to do it. And so then we can focus inwards once again. We can focus the energy. We can notice there's an energy that is sort of at the base of our spine. And many people will find that when that energy is starting to flow at the base of the spine, they will also have a connection at the top of their head. And this is again the guide that is showing us the path of Shakti. Now we know the path of Shakti. The path of Shakti through the physical body flows from the root, from the coccyx up to the head. That's only internally within the physical body. And then we can allow this to flow. We can connect it to the microcosmic orbit, and we can just allow it to gently rise up through us and out. Again, this is just Shakti. If Shakti moves by itself and moves without control, we can cause no response to it. We can only have a reaction to it. We are not in an awakened state. We are just trying to do something without control. And when we do things without control, if we play with matches, expect to be burnt. If you haven't gone through the steps, and the steps, as I said, is to clear those energy blocks, to do the shadow work, to remove everything that is going to stand in our way. And if we do not do these things, we are only going to be stuck in a phase of de-armouring. We're only going to be stuck in a phase of fighting exactly what we are trying to use to help us. We see this so often on these videos. Oh, my experience. Oh, Kundalini fatigue. There is no fatigue in Kundalini. The fatigue comes from the lack of energy, the lack of connection, the lack of response, the lack of control of the energies. So then, once we've done everything I've said, we can then start bringing that energy up the spine. We can connect it to the head. Everything will be smooth. Everything will be calm if done correctly. And then we can start connecting. Before we go any further, we can start connecting more deeply to Shakti, more deeply to the energy. We can grow our energy. We no longer have to have simply an internal feeling of the energy. Once again, we go so far inwards, it starts expanding outwards. This is another level of energy. I talk about this in other videos, that there are different levels of energy. We have the Jing, we have the Chi or the Prana. We then have the Shakti. We can divide this further still using other systems. Just going into this very simply. And once we have this flow within us in a controlled, responsible manner, we can then allow this energy to flow higher, where it connects to Shiva. Shiva is consciousness. Shiva is the knowing. And then once we have clearly connected Shakti to Shiva, energy to consciousness, without even trying to bring it down. First, we must establish that connection. Once we can flow Shakti in a controlled manner, and we are reaching those states of bliss and calmness, and we can feel the connection to everything, and we understand everything is one, there is no duality. Then we can start to connect Shakti to Shiva, the energy to consciousness. If we're not flowed, if we're not in control in this, this is when we can take ourselves out of our bodies, we can take ourselves very high, and it literally can feel like we're getting high. And so you've taken something, and it will keep going higher and higher and higher. And if we're not in control in this stage, this is where you can get what is called Kundalini Syndrome. This is where the psychosis element comes in, because you do not control it. And so you can literally break the system. This is very much like if we think about pain. People who suffer from long-term pain. Now we know about the modern studies of pain, that if you suffer from long-term back pain, the vast majority of sufferers of long-term back pain, the pain, although you feel it in your back, it isn't actually in your back. The pain response is in the brain. And we learn this as a sort of, it's like a warning sign going off. It's a misfire. And there is actually nothing in the back. It's just a response that we have learned over time. We have subconsciously manifested this pain response. And if you do suffer from some type of pain, this is a great practice to do before even attempting a Kundalini awakening. To get control of that pain, to release that pain, to reprogram the mind to not have that pain response, to free yourself from it. It's a great little practice. And then you can realize how you can control things, how we can misfire things, how we can break things, much like you can pull a muscle if you lift without warming up, if you're not in control. And this is the same thing that can happen when we are using the energies or connecting to consciousness. We can do things incorrectly, and yeah, we can pull a muscle, we can rip a muscle, we can tear a muscle. We don't want to be tearing ourselves at these higher levels, because this is where Kundalini Syndrome comes from. And it's all about control, it's all about connection, it's all about being able to create a response, an action, creating karma. Karma means action. Whilst we do not control it, we can start to see karma as something very different. We cannot release the karma. This gets all into the misinterpretations of karma turns into cause and effect. That's not what karma is. Karma means action. It's as simple as that. We need to be able to control these actions and these responses. Once we have this stable, once we are in control, we can then start feeling consciousness, living in consciousness. And I'm talking about the collective consciousness that is not inside us, it is outside of us. Therefore, we have gone from the very internal process, controlling internally, getting to the center point, expanding out to connect. Consciousness, then, we must bring back to us, go back internally as we bring it down, to once again learn control of it, to be able to create a response to it, to act responsibly with it, to then go deeper, coming back again, going into the inner, to go back to the outer. Once we have connected Shakti and Shiva, this is what I do in my trainings, as I mentioned before. If you're interested, go check out theawakenenergy.com. But I repeat, you can do this by yourself. You can go and read many texts. There are many good ancient texts out there. There's many good videos. Ironically, as some people think, YouTube's full of nonsense. Okay, there's a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of ego, making this my own system, making this, I know what this is about. And you have to be careful about that. Because people will tell you one thing and then someone else, and things get knocked down, and trying to build myself up for then once we have this connection, we can bring Shiva down. We go into deeper and deeper states of bliss, moksha, samadhi, connection. We feel this movement very strongly of prana within us. We can feel Shakti. We can control these movements. We can create responses to them. We can create responses to Shiva. And this is what we could call the purest form of manifestation. Before we do these things, of course, when I say shadow work, it means getting away that self-talk, that negative self-talk. All these things must be done previously to a Kundalini or spiritual awakening. We do not want to break the system. And we get to these levels and we see. Yes, it does show us, unfortunately, we can see very clearly the system in play. And we can see what is being done incorrectly, much like someone who is an expert driver can see how other people drive badly. They don't use their indicators, they turn the wrong way, and you can point these things out. But then we can get stuck in pointing these things out. To go deeper still, to go further still, we must then focus on the process of going wider, going deeper. The problem with this at these stages is some people may tell you, and people will tell you before, it's about almost disconnecting from the world. It's about retreating. You'll want to go and live in the mountains in a little cabin or in a temple or in a cave. Or this is not the purpose of a Kundalini awakening. So there is no purpose of Kundalini awakening. It simply gives you choices. So you can then use this to be selfish and go live in a cave, to go deeper to see how far you can go. Or you can use this to see how high you can go. You can think about this as reaching a goal to be attained, to have the answers, to have the... It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And whilst you are seeking the destination, you're always going to be disappointed whether you arrive or not. If you do not arrive, you'll be disappointed. And if you arrive, the journey's over. So then what do? But as we make this connection, we can then become the change. We can keep going deeper within ourselves, or we can help others that wish to seek the path to do so too, whilst we are here. In yoga, it states when you do this, you will receive the siddhis, you will receive these powers, and you must ignore them and set them aside. Now you can embrace these, and if you embrace them, you can get stuck in them. Because then it's all about, can I do this, and can I do that, and can I do... Some will get lost, some will get stuck. You see people, many people have been doing this for a long time, and you see people, they naturally fit into their level of where they need to be, that is their state. And this is again why yoga will say it will take many lifetimes to reach the higher stages of enlightenment. And then we can have people debating, because people love to debate what, for example, the word enlightenment, what it means. Whilst we're stuck on debating what it means, we're not actually attaining it. Attaining it takes practice. When you practice and you make the connection of Shakti and Shiva, you no longer need to live by other people's definitions of it, because you understand what it is. Far simpler than people make it out to be. And you can show people the way out of the dark. You can show them the truth. Not tell them, show them. Let's face it, at the end of the day, that is what the definition of guru means. The one that brings you out of the darkness. The one that shows you the truth. And then we get to enjoy the journey of connectedness, both on the inside and on the outside. And the deeper we go, the more control we have, the more responses we can have, the deeper we can manifest the energy in the consciousness. This is how to awaken your Kundalini. Not just the energy, not just the consciousness. We can do those individually, but whilst we do that individually, we're missing half of it. If you're interested in going further with this, with me, go to theawakenenergy.com. If you're interested in just learning more, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so we can go into this more deeply. If you respond to my videos, likes, then you'll get more notifications of when my videos come out. And please, if you think you know of anyone, this is important, if you think of anyone that could do well with hearing this, please share it with them. And I'll see you in another video.